Welcome back to Donington Park for more Ginetta action, this time courtesy of the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship, their second and final race of the weekend. Usually, we're quite used to seeing this three-race format play out over the weekend for all three of our Ginetta categories, but they're mixing it up slightly in 2025 with the Ginetta GT Championship by having a sprint race on the Saturday and a feature race on the Sunday. The feature race is a little bit longer, twice as long in fact, 40 minutes instead of 20, and will feature a mandatory pit stop in the middle. So all of the drivers will have to come into the pit lane, not for a driver change or refueling or anything really, but just to bring the teams into play and sort of align it a little bit more closely with proper GT racing series. So we're waiting for the green flag lap to be getting underway. There's a little bit of clear up required after our previous Ginetta Junior race, but we will hopefully have the track ready fairly shortly and the cars will be led around on their green flag lap. The sprint race yesterday was won by Archie Clark, so Archie Clark coming home with the race win, and it was a pretty solid victory in the end, 3 seconds or so back to Harry Gamble, who had Mike Taylor for company. And those two were battling pretty intensely for the race win. Robert Cronin was in 4th position. The grid for this race bears absolutely no resemblance to the results from the earlier race. And it's the second fastest qualifying times, I'm told, although the lap times themselves aren't actually shown on the grid sheet. So it would appear Mike Taylor, number 33, set the second fastest lap time in qualifying. Hadley Simpson will then start alongside him. Then Nick White and race 1 winner Archie Clark. But Archie Clark, I seem to recall, started on the second row for that race yesterday as well and moved through into the lead pretty quickly. That first race was largely a clean race as well, everyone managing to get to the end without any dramas, all 20 of them, a much bigger entry than we had in 2024, where at times we were getting dangerously close to a single figures entry, although I'm sure a lot of teams and drivers were looking ahead to 2025 more than focusing on 2024, because this year we have the new car. It looks very similar to the old car, but it is the G56 GTP8, which is an evolution of the G56. Ginetta say it's the fastest one-make car that they've ever produced, with the 6.2 litre V8 engine propelling these cars to a top speed, they tell me, of about 165 miles an hour, but it's the grunt and go acceleration of that very torquey V8 engine that's really the most impressive as it accelerates out of the tight corners. Mike Taylor and Hadley Simpson then will share the front row of the grid for the feature event in the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship. Nick White and Archie Clark on row 2, then it's Robert Cronin and Luke Shaw together on row 3. Collins and Dominic Paul will complete the top 8 with Cameron Pratt-Thompson and Harry Gamble together on row 5. Harry Gamble moving up from GT Academy last year. Alex Duncan and Peter Mangan share the 6th row with Carl Garnett and the first of the Tomlinsons, Emma Tomlinson, together on row 7. James Townsend and Ali Jafali for Elite Motorsport are on the 8th row with Amy Tomlinson and Ginetta stalwart Colin White on row 9. The back row of the grid shared by Oliver Fordham and James Rowling, the Fox Motorsport teammates. So, as I said, 40 minutes the duration, pit stop in the middle. A bit of strategy therefore can come into play, particularly if you feel you're being held up by another driver. It's not the easiest of circuits on which to overtake this one. There are 1 or 2 obvious places to launch a challenge, but in these cars, not the easiest of things to do. Although, as Mike Simpson, the CEO of Ginetta Motorsport, was telling us yesterday, these cars were designed specifically to try and sort of eradicate that ever-present issue of dirty air. GT cars these days are not immune to that as they become more and more aero-dependent, but these cars designed with little to no front-end aerodynamic bits and pieces, so they've got not very much downforce, but that, in theory, makes it easier to follow more closely through the medium and high-speed corners. Even so, it is quite a challenge to find a way through around this fast-flowing, sweeping Donington Park circuit. So if you are getting held up by somebody, pitting and getting the undercut before they come in might well be a valid option. We'll see how many teams decide to try and do that as we get into the pit stop window a bit later on. For now, though, it's all about trying to gain that early track position at the start of the race then, with Mike Taylor, the orange, white and blue car on our left, starting from pole. The yellow and black is Hadley Simpson, and then Nick White in his familiar white, blue and orange colours starts from third, ahead of Archie Clark, the blue and white car that won yesterday's race. 40 minutes on the clock then, the first ever 40-minute feature race for the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship is about to roar into life. The lights go out, off they go towards Redgate Corner, a couple of them breaking ranks further back. That's the 21 of Luke Shaw to the outside and Nick White to the inside for the race lead. Oh, there's contact further back. 3 cars head to the right-hand side of the road. Hopefully they won't bounce back into the track. Oh, miraculously, I think they've been avoided by everybody else. Nick White has gone through to the race lead. Who saw that coming? And it is, I think, Robert Cronin in second place. I think Robert is now the first of the yellow and white cars. Brilliant start from him from the third row of the grid. We'll piece that all together in a moment or two. My attention was, I think, understandably taken by the 3 spinning cars further back, 2 of which have continued. One is stuck in the gravel, I think. There is the car that was stuck in the gravel. That was Carl Garnett's number 19. Thankfully, the marshals have got it back underway. Luke Shaw now rattling up the side of the number 8 of Dominic Paul. And that has now caused a bit of a logjam heading towards Coppice Corner. And a very dramatic opening half a lap or so. That's a shame. 39 going no further. Cameron Pratt-Thompson for SVG Motorsport. He was one of the other cars that was involved in that skirmish heading into turn 1. His car, though, I can see out of the window, actually, is a long way off the road to the inside of the track on the exit of Redgate Corner, so hopefully no need for a safety car intervention. Leading trio then head down into the Melbourne hairpin. It is Cronin in second place. Robert Cronin out of nowhere, well, from 5th on the grid, is into P2 by the end of lap 1. There's a bit of a close moment further back which Colin White had a grandstand view of, but Cronin to second, Simpson third, 4th position for Jack Collins, as there Colin White tries to nip to the inside of Ali Jafali's Elite Motorsport car, and indeed does get ahead of Jafali on the brakes at the final corner. So, one eventful lap in the books. Through Redgate Corner they head. The leading 3 are about 1.1 seconds clear then of Collins in 4th position. Colin White there heads through Redgate Corner. Colin entered into the AM class, which makes up, I think, the majority of the grid. There are 11 drivers entered into the AM category. We've got 4 Pro-Ams and 4 out-and-out Pros. But it's a Pro-Am driver, Nick White, who has shown them a clean set of heels at the moment as he disappears into the distance. Right, here's the start. Let's try and figure out exactly what happens here. It happens somewhere in the mid-pack, I think, just behind Luke Shaw, who had attracted my attention. There it is, look. So it's the 44 of Peter Mangan, who was the other car involved. And he got sort of hooked across the road into the other cars, but who moved over on who, I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, they've all got going again, apart from Cameron Pratt-Thompson, who was sort of sandwiched in the middle of all of that, I think. Could go no further. Carl Garnett was the one who came spearing back across the road. Has continued at the back of the field. Ooh, very close to the tyre stack there was Dominic Paul. He jinked the car to the left to avoid it, but that sent him straight into the gravel trap. Thankfully, he keeps the car going, but Dominic will lose a handful of positions as a result. He was running quite close behind his Triple M Motorsport teammate Mike Taylor at that point. Taylor all the way down in 6th place, having started on pole position. So Mike Taylor won't be particularly pleased with how his race has gone so far. I think it's fair to say, though, that Robert Cronin will be. He is into 2nd position. He's chasing down the race leader. Fastest lap, by the way, set by the 4th place man, perhaps unsurprisingly, Archie Clark. There he is, the former Ginetta Junior star, in 4th place, and looking now to try and chase down the race leaders. A 1:35.002 is not anything like as quick as they went yesterday, but you wouldn't expect that because the cars will have more fuel on board in race number 2 to last the full 40 minutes. So you would expect them to go a bit slower. Also, they have to manage the tyres a little bit more. We saw a few drivers seemingly running out of grip towards the end of yesterday's much shorter race. So today that will be certainly something on their mind. Here comes Luke Shaw, who had an exciting opening lap. Luke Shaw is leading the AM class, by the way, but Emma Tomlinson, who's only 2 seconds behind him, is 2nd in that class, and Dominic Paul down to 3rd, lost the class lead with that moment at the chicane a lap ago. But won't be too far back either, I wouldn't have thought. Here comes Luke Shaw there. You can see the gap back to Emma Tomlinson, the black and white 47 car. They are the top 2 in the AM class. Luke Shaw, the leader, tagging along very much with a couple of the Pro-Ams ahead, Mike Taylor and Harry Gamble. really, Harry Gamble actually might tail us a little bit further up the road, isn't he? So there is Emma Tomlinson. Dominic Paul on a brake car behind is also an Am, and then you've got the Pro-Am entry, number 27 of Alex Duncan, who I think was a late entry for this weekend. He wasn't on the initial entry list that I was sent, but good to have another car on the grid, making us up to the nice round number of a 20-car grid for this season opener. And again, Mike Simpson was telling us yesterday, we think there are a handful of other drivers on their way for the next round at Silverstone, so that's very exciting. Through Redgate comes this fight then that's going on between drivers in two different classes, but still competing for 7th place overall. There is your lead group, though, and Nick White continuing to get away. Archie Clark, though, continues to be the fastest man on the track. He's just improved upon his own fastest lap of the race, 1:34.231 now, as he gets now within a second of Simpson in third. Hadley Simpson, who started on the front row of the grid. Luke Shaw right in behind Harry Gamble then. Harry Gamble, the Ginetta GT Academy graduate, came in last year to the GT Academy and was immediately a front runner, winning races in that campaign. Now moving up into the big class, into the Ginetta GT Championship itself, and looking like he's got reasonably good Pro-Am pace. But Nick White, we've seen this from Nick before, back in his GT Academy days. He, I seem to remember, was entered, well, was certainly not expected as a rookie to be up there winning races overall. But that's exactly what he was doing, and Nick White has continued that performance now into the Ginetta GT Championship, and he's getting away now from Cronin, Simpson and Clark, who are absolutely nose to tail in the fight for second place. Towards Goddard's they head, and of course Cronin and Simpson have, well, they look like they've got very yes, they look like they've got very similar liveries, but actually running in different teams. Simpson is a Zentek Motorsport driver, Cronin running with Elite. It is Simpson who is defending into Redgate Corner, though, which means that the MDD prepared car of Archie Clark is starting to apply the pressure. He's had a good run out of Redgate. There might be an overlap through Hollywood. I think there is. Yes, side by side down the Craner curves. Can he hang tough around the outside? They almost lean on each other. There's tyre smoke out of the 37 car, but through will go Archie Clark. That was a brilliantly committed move, and Clark moves into third position. Really can't begin to explain how brave you've got to be to go around the outside of someone down the Craner curves, but Archie Clark is fired up. Yesterday's winner wants to make it a double. He knows he's got time, still 33 minutes to go, but he doesn't want to allow Nick White to get too far away. None of these pro drivers can underestimate Nick White's potential here. He is a very quick driver, and he's a very consistent driver. That's what we've seen over the years from Nick. Once he gets out in front and gets his head down, he is a very difficult man to catch. So Nick just trying to build that cushion. He'll be really hoping now that Robert Cronin is going to put up a pretty sturdy defence against Archie Clark. The longer he can hold Clark back, the more chance Nick White's got of escaping a bit further up the road. Won't be encouraged, will Nick, if he looked back and saw Cronin missing the apex there at the Melbourne hairpin, but you can do that. You can go wide at Melbourne and still carry good speed up the hill, so he didn't have to defend into Goddard's. Being caught now, aren't they, by Jack Collins, the E3 Sport driver. Strange to see an E3 Sport car in those particular colours, isn't it? The red and black, normally more of a turquoise and white livery, but it's a striking car. And it's starting to march towards this group ahead. Collins just did a 1:34.3, a full second quicker than Hadley Simpson. Here comes Archie Clark, trying to do to Cronin what he did to Simpson a lap ago, and I think he will, you know. Cronin couldn't close the door, and Clark will sweep around the outside. Brilliant stuff. So Archie Clark has got that car hooked up through Redgate Corner. The move might be made at the Craner curves, but it begins at Redgate Corner as he really gets the car off the turn a little bit quicker than the others around him. That's what allows him just to fill the mirrors, get to the inside line at Redgate Corner. And that's what's allowing him to find a way through every time on, well, first Simpson, then Cronin, and perhaps if he can get there, he'll try and deploy the same tactics against Nick White. So we're 9 minutes into the race now, marching towards the sort of middle 20 minutes of the race, and pit stops maybe not expected just yet, but we will be seeing some a little bit later on. That's Simpson nibbling away at the back of Cronin's car through the Melbourne loop. Zentek prepared machine not yet able to find a way through, has another little look to the inside at Goddard's. And as they watch Archie Clark get further away, they'll also be increasingly aware that Jack Collins is closing in behind them. There is Collins, the number 12 car, as I said, prepared by E3 Sport. Looks the quicker of this group now, doesn't it, really? Noses dip aggressively as they hit the brakes through Redgate Corner. There is the number 12 machine, the last of the pro drivers running, but they've all sort of gathered themselves together, haven't they now? Second, third, fourth and fifth, all pro drivers. Pro class led by Archie Clark. This, the fight for second in that class. Is Simpson about to make a move? No, not quite close enough into the old hairpin, but Robert Cronin will be very aware that if he puts a foot wrong, that position will probably go begging. Archie Clark, by the way, was a tenth and a half or so quicker than Nick White on that lap. He was overtaking Robert Cronin, I suppose, which would have held him back slightly. And in the first sector of this lap, he is 2/10 up on the race leader, so the lead gap is starting to come down. But Nick just needs to keep his head down here, not be rattled by the approaching Archie Clark. Clark will have to use a bit more of his tyre to get to Nick White, and that could pay dividends for Nick in the second half of the race. Just got to keep running to a pace that he's comfortable with. Through has just gone Mike Taylor, the Pro-Am leader, and Luke Shaw, the Am class front runner. This is then the fight for second in Am. It's still Emma Tomlinson from Dominic Paul, with the 27 machine of Alex Duncan in behind. There is Duncan, the unliveried number 27. Not running in the same class as these two drivers. He is listed as Pro-Am, but he's still very much sharing the same bit of racetrack as these two, and distracting maybe Dominic Paul slightly from the task of going after Emma Tomlinson's second place in class. DTO, who ran Ginetta's in the British GT Championship for a little while a year or so ago, still represented in the Ginetta GT Championship this year, courtesy of Emma Tomlinson. And Emma doing well to keep these two at bay for now. Again, not feeling the need to defend, not looking in the mirrors too much. That is the number 4 of Oliver Fordham's Fox Motorsport car, pointing the wrong way, almost twice pointing the wrong way at the Melbourne hairpin. But gets going again. Novice cross on the back of his car, denoting that he is a relative racing rookie. Again, gets going again without any need for outside assistance, which is good news. So on board then with Hadley Simpson in the number 37 machine, heading down through, up through Coppice Corner. The car ahead of us is Robert Cronin in second position. The car behind, though, is more of a threat, I think, isn't it? Because now Jack Collins is as close, at least, to Simpson as Simpson is to Cronin, maybe a little bit closer. The run through the chicane will be crucial. Anybody going to have a little look into the Melbourne hairpin? Cronin looked like he dipped a wheel on the grass there, but it didn't slow him down particularly. Although they all converge under braking, there is no out-and-out challenge for position. They scramble back up towards the final turn at Goddard's. And the 26 car holding on to third place. Now, what's going on at the front of the field? Well, Nick White does a 1:34.0. It is a 33.8 for Clark in second. So again, only 2/10 quicker. So not a huge difference in performance. And Nick White is holding his own. In fact, Nick just put in a personal best first sector. Clark a purple second sector, so fastest of anybody. So yeah, Nick White and Archie Clark getting together, and also getting together further back. That was the 27 up the inside of Alex Duncan, trying to get past Dominic Paul. That nearly put the Am class podium sitter, Dominic Paul, into the gravel trap, but they just about avoided serious contact. It has dislodged, though, I think, slightly the front bumper on the number 8 machine. So that's going to be a distraction, if nothing else, to Dominic, and if it really starts dragging on the ground, it could start slowing him down too. But Alex Duncan with a look up the inside at Redgate. It's surprisingly difficult to get that move made, though, because the car on the outside always has more momentum from corner apex out. It's difficult on the tighter line to make the move stick. So 26 minutes of the race to go. That means, I believe, we're about 6 minutes away from the pit window opening. It will be open, we think, for 10 minutes. And cars must spend 60 seconds stationary in the pit lane. So again, because there is no driver change to do or refueling required, it's more just a minimum pit stop time that must be met. But the team have to make sure that the car doesn't leave the pit box too quickly. Dominic Paul there drifting a little bit wide. And trying his best now to drag his way onto the tail of Emma Tomlinson once more. Leaders have just gone through, by the way, only 1/10 faster that time was Archie Clark. It was a personal best lap for Nick White and an outright fastest final sector, so Nick is certainly putting up a fight, as is Dominic Paul. We're going to see another challenge maybe from Alex Duncan into Redgate Corner. He tried it a lap ago, thinks better of it this time. Perhaps wisely, given it ended in, I think, a little bit of traded paint on the previous tour. Dominic Paul then 10th position overall, but really could do without having this battle with a Pro-Am driver because it's allowing Emma Tomlinson to get away in front. Always wonder whether Dominic might be better served letting Alex Duncan go and then unleashing him upon Emma Tomlinson. In fact, is that what he's doing? I think it is. Wow. Even a broken clock is right twice a day, as they say. It's very rare that we see drivers doing the sensible thing, let's be honest, like that. But Dominic Paul does get out of the way of, or does he have a problem? Hang on, I was feeling quite smug for a second there, but I wonder whether maybe Dominic Paul's running into some sort of an issue with that front bodywork because he's dropped significantly away from Alex Duncan now, and the car maybe looks a little off pace down the straight. He's braking at the normal point into the chicane though. Hopefully there's not an issue developing for the brake car. And that was just a smart move to let him go. Oliver Fordham's off, and this time into the gravel trap at McLean's and a long way off the road. And quite a long way around the corner as well. It's an odd place to end up, that. Oh, sorry, it's the old hairpin, beg your pardon. So, yes, that makes a bit more sense. That is quite a common place to have an off-track issue. Now, the marshals are trying to push him out of that gravel trap. If he drives that car out of there, then I'm going to be very, very impressed. It's got some traction, it's got some momentum, it's starting to dig in, go on, a bit more power, a bit more power. I think he's going to do it, actually, and will rejoin the circuit. Now, the race leaders are coming through, that's why he's slowing down, but of course if he slows down, he risks losing that forward momentum and getting beached again. Mercifully, he finds the concrete runoff area, fires the car up, and off he goes. So Oliver Fordham picking the right moment to rejoin the circuit. This is how he left the circuit. Just lost the rear going into the turn. Quite dirty down there now at this late stage of the day. There's not a lot of grip if you get offline. But he rolled a long way off the road and is now dropping even more gravel onto the circuit. He's smartly, though, staying well off the racing line, so it shouldn't impede the other cars as they come through at racing speed. And he lives to fight another day. And again, good work by the marshals to get him going. But it's not often you see a car that is stationary in the gravel trap at the old hairpin get back underway without the assist of a tow truck. Right, leaders into the final turn. We're a couple of laps away from the pit window opening, I reckon. Now, on the previous lap, Nick White was actually 2/10 quicker than Archie Clark, but Archie, I think, is doing something about that now. This lap looks quicker. It's a 34.5 for the leader, a 33.9 for Clark, so over half a second faster that time, and Archie Clark now is starting to make some serious inroads into the race lead. He's not quite within striking range yet, though, so Nick White's done well to keep him back up to this point. Remember, Nick is a Pro-Am driver, Archie in the Pro category. You score points by the looks of the wording within the regulations based upon your overall finishing position. It doesn't mention anything about class positions, so it is well worth Nick White defending this lead if he can. Up through McLean's corner. Yet having to defend, but he'll certainly have one eye on the mirror, knowing that Archie Clark is closing in by another 2/10 in the first sector. The gap came down, so it's well under a second now as they make their way onto the exhibition straight for the 12th time of asking. We believe next time by will be their first opportunity to make a pit stop. And is this maybe where Clark tries that undercut that I mentioned earlier on? If he doesn't really fancy making a move on Nick White on track, perhaps he could come in early and try and get released into some clear track. Oliver Fordham's been in, not for his mandatory pit stop, but instead to get a load of gravel cleared out of the car, I would imagine, and maybe give the car the once over. He looked as though he was about to rejoin the race, though, so still only the one retirement. Cameron Pratt-Thompson after that first corner incident as the leaders turn through the final corner. And Archie Clark starts to try and size up Nick White. He'll be figuring out which parts of the circuit he's quicker, where maybe Nick has a slight advantage. The trouble for Archie is going to be that Nick White seems pretty strong through the second half of the lap, and that is where the major overtaking opportunities are at Melbourne and Goddard. So if that's where Nick is excelling, it's not going to be easy for Archie Clark to make a move. He had a bit of opposite lock there, I noticed as well, did Archie, through Redgate Corner, so the rear of his car is not as settled as he might like. you do need a car that's going to rotate pretty well around here at Donington, because we have lots of these long, medium-speed corners. You don't want the car to be understeering wide. They are, of course, front-engined cars, these as well, and the 6.2-litre V8 engine is a fairly heavy lump of metal, so there's a lot of weight over that front axle, and it certainly helps to rotate the car. A little bit too much rotation on occasion for Archie Clark, I've noticed over the last lap or so, but it's working for him. He's pushing on. He's starting to get now closer and closer to the race leader, albeit only by a 1/10 of a second in Sector 1, another 1/10 of a second in Sector 2. Now we head into the all-important Sector 3. In a way, it doesn't matter how quick you are through the first 2/3 of the lap. It's all about having a good run through the chicane and attacking down into the Melbourne hairpin. The pit window is open, so pit window open for 10 minutes, so it's all about to get very busy in the pit lane. And I wonder how different the running order will look at the end of that pit window compared to what it is now at the start of it. Through the final turn, does Clark head for the pit lane? Yes, he does. That's really smart stuff from Archie Clark and from the MDD team. The minimum time that they have to spend in the pit lane is 75 seconds from pit in to pit out. And they have to stay stationary for, I think it was 60 seconds of the 75 to stop them trundling very slowly down the pit lane and eating into the 75 seconds. But anyway, Archie Clark, whether that was decided by the team or by driver, I don't know. I suspect probably the driver made that call to come in. Because there is no pit work as such that needs to be done, you're sort of free to pit whenever you like, as long as it's within the window. And I suspect he realised that this was his best opportunity to get past Nick White without having to engage in an on-track battle. These two, though, are engaging in an on-track battle. This is Hadley Simpson and Jack Collins, and they are now debating third position, because, of course, we've had the pit stop for Archie Clark. It's a net fourth, though, really, once all is said and done. And position within class as well, a podium place within the pro class up for grabs. We've also got the 11 of Amy Tomlinson in, and Carl Garnett, although Garnett, of course, had lost a significant chunk of time from that Turn 1 incident. Off goes Archie Clark as in comes Garnett. That worked out quite well, and Archie Clark released. Look, it's a beautifully empty racetrack. Now, this is where the undercut can really work. It's not a tyre advantage that he's got, because they haven't changed tyres on that car, but he's released into clear air, and he may feel that he can go quicker than Nick White in a straight-up fight in clean air. Nick, of course, also has no traffic, although there is actually, ironically, a lapped car ahead, which Nick is closing in on. Hopefully that won't delay him too much. Cronin, Simpson and Collins come through, second, third and fourth. And Mike Taylor in fifth position as well. The graphic on the left-hand side of the screen updating now to show those who have made a pit stop. Oliver Fordham's was not his mandatory stop. Out wide has got Cronin there. Cronin, I think, was about to lose second place to Hadley Simpson. A mistake then for Robert Cronin, who had just inherited the class lead with Archie Clark's pit stop. But I'm pretty sure the next time we see that group of cars, they'll be in a different order. They're about to come into view, are they? Out of the old hairpin. Nick White, we know, is still the leader. There are the two yellow and white cars, but that is, I'm pretty sure, now Simpson ahead. Yes, it is. So Simpson into second place. It was a tiny error from Robert Cronin. Just dipped two wheels in the gravel coming out of Redgate Corner, and that was all the invitation that Hadley Simpson needed. Now, can Hadley get away? That's the question. These three have looked remarkably evenly matched through this race so far. So I doubt he's going to pull a big gap, but he'll want to try and capitalise again on having clean air to build up any margin that he can. And this might now change his strategy. He might have been thinking, well, OK, I'll go for the undercut as well. I'll come in early, get out in some clean air and try and overtake Robert Cronin that way. He doesn't really need to do that now. Carl Garnett, by the looks of it, sorry, Oliver Fordham was the lapped car Nick White had to dispatch, which he's done so on this lap. Now, has that cost him any time? We'll find out momentarily, because he's into the pit lane, so he's done 2 laps more than Archie Clark. And interestingly, didn't immediately react, did he, to Archie pitting. We've also got Simpson and Collins in, so Robert Cronin will now move into the lead of the race. There is Archie Clark. So Archie Clark, having made his pit stop, is heading through Schwantz Curve. He's about half a lap away from the start-finish line. And when he gets there, we'll have an idea of who's going to be in the lead of the race. You really do feel, don't you, that if Clark can get the lead here, it might be a tough ask for Nick White to find a way back through. Whereas if Nick finds himself still in the lead, I don't think he's going to be an easy man to overtake. There is Nick White. Luke Shaw is in as well in the number 21 car. We've got a handful of cars further back in as well. The 75 of James Rowling just leaving his pit box. As Clark negotiates the Fogarty S's, a little bit scrappy maybe over the curbs. What are his sector times like, I wonder, for Archie Clark? Well, 20.8 Sector 1 is pretty rapid. In fact, it's about the quickest anyone's done in Sector 1. Sector 2, a 36.9. He already had the fastest Sector 2 time, which was a 36.5. So it's not a brilliant middle sector for Clark. This could be a bit closer than you think, actually. Clark then, having pitted 2 laps earlier, he's been in clean air for those 2 laps. There goes Nick White out of the pit box, but he's been overtaken, hasn't he? He's been overtaken by Hadley Simpson, so something's gone wrong there. Hadley Simpson gets released then. He's not going to beat Archie Clark out, so Clark gets the lead, but Simpson is ahead of Nick White. Now, bear in mind, they're all supposed to be adhering to a 75-second minimum pit stop time. Something rather strange has happened there. What's happened then? So Nick White was in the pits for 1 minute 19 seconds. Hadley Simpson for, well, the timing screen tells me 1 minute and 11 seconds. So I think Hadley Simpson might find himself in a spot of bother here. That is 3.3 seconds too short a pit stop, I reckon. But again, we'll let the officials look at the data and come to a proper conclusion. On the flip side, Nick White spent too long in the pit lane because he was there for about 4.3 seconds longer than he needed to be. And he's come out of the pits, I would say, 3.5, 4 seconds behind Archie Clark. So had he not done that, it could have been awfully close for the race lead. But as it is, he falls behind Clark and, temporarily anyway, behind Hadley Simpson, who is up into a net second place. It's actually Harry Gamble who leads the way because we've had Robert Cronin and Mike Taylor in the pit lane. So it is Harry Gamble who moves through to the lead. Emma Tomlinson there, the 47 car in 2 from second place in the AM class, with still 3 3/4 minutes left of the pit window. 75 goes by, that car's been in already. James Rowling down in 18th position as they go past the stricken car of Cameron Pratt-Thompson there on the right-hand side of screen. Cameron will be watching somewhere from within the spectator area. He'd much rather be taking an active part in this second race of the weekend. Through come the leaders. They're all going to get ahead of Cronin, interestingly. And what about the number 12 car of Jack Collins, though? Well, that is going to be behind Cronin still, so that hasn't changed. Cronin was ahead of Clark before the pit cycle. How long did Cronin spend in the pit lane? Car number 26, it was a 1 minute 17, so a couple of seconds longer than was necessary. And the number 12 machine, 17.3 as well, so almost identical pit stop times between Cronin and Jack Collins, and that's why they've come out of that pit cycle pretty much exactly the same distance apart from each other as they were going into it. So, question marks over Hadley Simpson's second position, but it certainly looks good for Archie Clark, this, doesn't it? He will inherit the race lead now that Harry Gamble has pitted. I think Gamble was one of the last cars we were waiting for. The only other one is James Townsend, the SVG Motorsport car, which has gone through to do another lap and has possibly therefore moved into the lead of the race. The team not just standing idly by whilst all of this is happening, they're checking the car over. In comes Townsend, by the way, red and black number 3 car, but they're checking the cars over, making sure there's nothing wrong with them. They might be able to make a few tyre pressure adjustments too, and so they can lower the tyre pressures, so that when the driver goes back out on circuit, they've got a little bit more grip. High tyre pressures, too high tyre pressures are not good for yielding good grip levels. Through them will go the number 43 of Archie Clark, and that is now to retake the race lead. So Clark leads, Simpson second, Nick White third. And where is Harry Gamble going to come back out? He was running towards, I think, just outside of the top half dozen, wasn't he, before the safety car came out. Sorry, safety car came out before the pit stop window opened, I should say. Yes, he was 7th position and rejoins just ahead of the lapped car of Oliver Fordham and then drives immediately onto the grass. Not entirely sure why, but Harry Gamble taking the shortest possible route through the right-hander at Hollywood. Continues on his way, thankfully, on the black stuff. So pit stops are largely complete. We're still waiting for James Townsend to exit the pit lane, but everyone has at least been in now, and Archie Clark resumes the race lead. So that's the first change that we've had. Clark then taking over the lead of the race, getting ahead of Nick White. and so too did Hadley Simpson. Hadley, the only driver on the timing screen whose pit stop time is in question. It is highlighted red, which denotes that it was underneath the 75-second minimum. First race with this pit stop procedure. It was always expected, I suppose, that someone would get it wrong. And we'll wait for official confirmation as to whether that is the case for Hadley Simpson. It's a shame, really, though, because Simpson's going really well. He's sort of matching Archie Clark's pace, and Clark is on a good lap here. A purple first sector for Clark, but he was then 2/10 slower than Hadley in the middle sector. Accelerates off the final corner, and we'll see whether or not Hadley Simpson's going to be able to match the pace of Clark. It's a 33.9 for the leader, 34.0, so only a tenth or so slower for Hadley in second position. Hadley Simpson of Ginetta Motorsport, one of the younger drivers on the grid, in fact still studying his A-levels at the moment. Began karting back in 2016 and moved into car racing in the Fiesta Junior Championship back in 2023, 2 years ago. Then did a bit of brick car racing in a Renault Clio, moved to GT Cup last year with 2 races in a G55 Ginetta with an AM partner. He was very much the pro in that lineup, relatively inexperienced then in cars. Hadley Simpson very, very quick indeed, and well, if he does somehow escape a penalty, he could yet be a contender for a race victory. There's Robert Cronin. He's battling with Jack Collins. Robert Cronin, the Irish driver who's done a bit of Porsche Sprint Challenge racing in the past, I seem to recall. And a family of 4 racing brothers, most notably perhaps 4-time British Rally champion Keith Cronin. With Colin Cronin, of course, also doing big things in the Ginetta Junior Championship. Robert, though, currently sits 4th position, but for how much longer? It's 4th overall, it's 3rd in the pro category, but if there is a penalty incoming for Hadley Simpson, and that could well become 2nd, although I must stress we haven't had any notification on the timing screen that that's being investigated, so for now we'll take it at face value and say that Hadley Simpson's in 2nd position, but he's 2.1 seconds now off the race lead. Nick White 1.3 seconds behind him, but comfortably quicker than these two who are doing battle over 4th position. So Jack Collins closing in on Robert Cronin, less than a Ginetta G56 length between them as they drop downhill through the Craner curves. Is there a move to be made perhaps at the old hairpin? He's thinking about the inside line. It's such a difficult pass to make, though. These cars don't have a huge amount of downforce, but there's enough grip in them that you're carrying pretty good speed through the old hairpin. So you don't do a huge amount of braking. You want to open out the line on entry as much as you can as well. So nipping up the inside of somebody will slow you down. McLean's head up towards Coppice Corner. Beautiful rumble they make as they go past our cameras on acceleration, out of Coppice Corner again, towards the Fogarty S's. Now this really is where the attack has to begin for Jack Collins. A good run through the chicane. Even better if he could force a defensive move out of Robert Cronin. That didn't happen. Cronin didn't defend into the chicane, therefore has a decent run off, and so Collins not close enough into the Melbourne hairpin to attack. That's where it's got to start, hasn't it? Get a good run through Coppice, force Cronin maybe to defend or get in his mirrors into the chicane and then get the run down the hill into McLean's. It's one of the great things about the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, really. One of the great challenges of this place is that you can't usually just make a move in the spur of the moment. You've got to plan it and begin executing it perhaps half a lap before you actually make the decisive move, because there are only a couple of really big braking points. Despite that, as we were hearing earlier on in the day, it's one of the toughest tracks in the UK on brakes. You don't use the brakes that often, but when you are using them, you're using them very, very hard. And the big stop into Redgate, the chicane, the 2 hairpins, really testing the brakes. So far, no mistakes under braking, or indeed anywhere coming from Robert Cronin. If anything, he's getting away from Jack Collins on this lap ever so slightly. Remarkably evenly matched pace up front, by the way. Archie Clark is getting away now from Hadley Simpson, who has a red exclamation mark next to his name on my timing screen. We're not seen a message about this yet, but that generally suggests that a penalty has been applied or is about to be applied. No notification of what that penalty may be, but I think we all have a good idea of what it may be for. So we'll await further clarification of that. He's dropped away now quite significantly anyway from Archie Clark, but he and Nick White lapping within a fraction of a second of each other last time, and the sector times on this lap are very even as well, so Nick White isn't really closing in rapidly on Hadley Simpson. May not need to, though, if there is a penalty incoming for car 37. There it goes, a bit wide through the hairpin at Goddard. That will have cost him some time. So Simpson, yeah, 134.335, a 34.356 for Nick White. But as I just mentioned, we do have this exclamation mark on the timing screen next to Hadley Simpson's name, and that means a penalty is incoming. Some championships take the number of seconds that you were below the pit time and multiply it by, oh yes, that's exactly what it is. It's a 33.533 second penalty added to Hadley Simpson's time, which sounds like a ridiculous penalty to give, but they will have taken the 3.3533 seconds that he was slower, was under the minimum pit stop time, and multiplied it by 10 to give you the 33.533 second penalty. Now that's quite a chunk of time, isn't it? 33 seconds, give or take, is going to knock him, I think, down to 8th position, and certainly last of the pro drivers, which is not ideal. Now here is Emma Tomlinson. We've had some big changes in the AM class, haven't we? Because Emma Tomlinson was second in that class, and third was Dominic Paul, where they're both now behind Ali Jafali. So Ali Jafali has come out of nowhere, really. He was fourth in class, but a good 4 seconds behind Dominic Paul at the start of the pit window. And now Ali Jafali is showing a second place in the category. He's 19 seconds behind Shaw, the class leader, which suggests it's more issues for Tomlinson and Paul than it was particularly good pit stop for Ali Jafali. Jafali, the number 63 car, spent how long in the pit lane? Minute and 16, pretty good, pretty close to the minute and 15 target. In fact, that's about as close as anybody got to a minute and 15. What about Tomlinson and Paul? Well, there is Emma Tomlinson on the tail of Ali Jafali in an on-track battle for second position. Is there a move to be made into the Melbourne hairpin? Yes, there is. She commits to the inside line. The DTO car skates out wide, though. Ali Jafali sees the opportunity to get the switchback, and I think has executed it well. Has he cleared the 47? Crowding over to the inside line, but Tomlinson is still there and will commit again to a late-braking move into Goddard's, and this time I think she's gone through. So Emma Tomlinson does get back ahead of Jafali, or does she? Because Ali is once again back alongside, this time on the outside line into Redgate. They touch wheels once, twice, nearly 3 times. That was a bit sketchy. And Tomlinson once again has to brake late on the inside line. There could still be another switchback in this for Jafali. No, doesn't quite have the traction off the corner. And so Emma Tomlinson does move ahead of Ali Jafali and back into second place in class. Jafali spent 4 seconds less in the pit lane than Emma Tomlinson did, and I think was about 5 seconds behind Emma. So that, coupled with the fact that he pitted later and maybe had some clean air before he came in, netted him the second place, but Emma's taken it all back again now. Don't think there's much chance she's going to catch Luke Shaw, though. He's 22 seconds up the road from these two, because Luke Shaw had a pretty trouble-free pit stop window. Dominic Paul closing in as well now, though. So Dominic, also an AM driver. So 3 AMs together. Then Alex Duncan behind the Pro-Am. And a big gap back to Colin White, who sits inside the top 5 in class at the moment. So Colin going well. Pretty lonely, Colin White, at the moment, though. He's 9 seconds behind this group and is 2.8 seconds ahead of Amy Tomlinson in 14th place. Ali Jafali not going down without a fight here, though, is he? He's sticking with Emma Tomlinson as they run through the Melbourne hairpin, climb uphill to the final turn. At McLean's, meanwhile, Robert Cronin and Jack Collins still doing battle over 4th place. Try as he might, though, Collins just hasn't been able to find a way around Cronin. Jack Collins is going to have to get inventive here, I think, if he's going to find a way through. Another former karter, but has never completed a full season of car racing until this year. He did some Mazda MX-5 racing at the back end of last year, I think, to gain signatures, and now here he is in the Ginetta GT Championship in the pro class. and running very strongly indeed, challenging Robert Cronin, who's definitely more experienced than Jack is. Meanwhile, Dominic Paul under pressure from Alex Duncan, as here, well, I said that Jack Collins was struggling to find a way past Robert Cronin. He's up alongside into and again out of the Goddard's hairpin. But is there a move to be made at Redgate Corner? He's on the outside line. That surely is going to make his job of overtaking pretty difficult. Takes a wide line in, and again has no intention of going right round the outside. Instead, looks for the late apex and gets it. Absolutely textbook switchback move, and he is going to have that place made surely by the time they get to the middle part of the Craner curves. Yes, through he goes. So Jack Collins into 4th overall, 3rd in class, but that will become 2nd in class with the penalty for Hadley Simpson, and now he's off the road almost into the gravel at the old hairpin and opens the door again. So giddy was he, having got through at last. He made a mistake at the old hairpin, and Robert Cronin needs no second invitation. He's to the inside of McLean's corner, and he snatches the position back. Collins, with a quicker exit, tries to get to the inside at Coppice corner, but Cronin's having none of it. Nips to the inside, another switchback maybe. Yes, I think there is. There's just about an opening on the inside line exiting Coppice. A terrific lap of side-by-side racing between these two, and they are absolutely together as they head for the chicane. The inside line should be the place to be, and I think it will be. Robert Cronin sails into the chicane ahead, and Collins, with a bit of a snap of oversteer on turn-in, won't now have the opportunity to retaliate on corner exit. But that was terrific racing. 2 or 3 brilliant switchback manoeuvres across between both drivers, and that was a terrific display of racecraft. The race victory, by the way, goes to Archie Clark. The checkered flag creeping up on us there, but Archie Clark gets the win. Hadley Simpson is 2nd on the road, but that 33 and a bit second penalty will demote him down the order. So Nick White, the Pro-Am winner, will finish in 2nd, and it will be Robert Cronin after a terrific last lap tussle with Jack Collins, who comes home in 3rd place overall and 2nd within the AM category. Mike Taylor will come through to finish 5th overall, I should say, and 2nd in Pro-Am, ahead of Harry Gamble. This, meanwhile, is Ali Jafali trying to come back at Emma Tomlinson for 2nd place in the AM class. Luke Shaw has already come through to claim the victory in class. Jafali really wide into the Melbourne hairpin, and there's then contact between Alex Duncan and Dominic Paul just behind him. Duncan getting into the back of Dominic's car. There's been some contact, I think, between Ali Jafali and Emma Tomlinson, maybe, because the front of Jafali's car is looking a little bit second-hand as they accelerate off the final corner to the timing line. It is Tomlinson 2nd in class, and Ali Jafali has to settle for 3rd. Brilliant stuff though, fantastic racing, and well, a bit of paint traded between this group of drivers, but mightily entertaining stuff. And despite the chaotic start to the race, it was largely a clean race. Only the one non-finisher being Cameron Pratt-Thompson after his part that he played in the opening lap skirmish. That was a terrific race, and I think that 40-minute pit stop format is a winner, isn't it? Because that really injected an extra dimension into that one. Nick White, the Pro-Am winner, as I said, led much of the race overall, and I'm willing to put a bit of money on the fact that he will probably win a race overall before the season is out. He is more than quick enough to do so. And see whether or not he's able to do it at Silverstone next time out, I suppose. And Luke Shaw, we didn't see a lot of Luke in that race, really, because he just sort of disappeared into the distance in AM and managed to claim the victory in the end by nearly 25 seconds. Very impressive stuff indeed. So the drivers will head back to the paddock to debrief and discuss with each other and with their teams as well. And they are led into the pit lane by Archie Clark, our race winner then. Archie Clark, a dominant performance this weekend at Donington Park. It's a Donington double for the former Ginetta junior racer. Archie Clark victorious with Nick White in 2nd position. Robert Cronin rounds out the podium overall, but is 2nd in the pro class with Jack Collins in 4th. Mike Taylor 5th, and 6th place for Harry Gamble. 7th, Luke Shaw, the AM winner, ahead of Hadley Simpson. 2nd on the road, but a pit stop penalty puts him down into 8th place. Emma Tomlinson and Ali Jafali will complete the AM podium, 9th and 10th overall, ahead of Dominic Paul and Alex Duncan, with Colin White in 13th. Then it was Amy Tomlinson and James Townsend, Peter Mangan and Carl Garnett, James Rowling 1 lap down after a 30-second penalty, and Oliver Fordham, after an extra pit stop, was the last car still running at the checkered flag. The first ever 40-minute pit stop race for the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship certainly delivered the action. There was a 3-car incident at the start between Carl Garnett, Cameron Pratt-Thompson and Peter Mangan, which miraculously only took one of those drivers, Cameron Pratt-Thompson, out of the race. The others all able to continue. No safety car was needed though, and a very shuffled pack were able to continue doing battle. Nick White had broken into the race lead, and Robert Cronin from 5th on the grid was in 2nd place. Archie Clark, the race 1 winner, had some work to do. He was 4th after the first corner, but then steadily started moving his way up the order. First past Hadley Simpson, and then with another almost carbon copy move on the Craner curves against Robert Cronin. Dominic Paul was doing battle further back with Alex Duncan. These two would be tied together for much of the race. Duncan got through just before the pit window, but after the pit stops would find himself behind once again. Oliver Fordham found himself in the gravel at the old hairpin and amazingly was able to be dug back out without the necessity for a safety car. Archie Clark pitted a couple of laps before race leader Nick White, and by the time the pit stops were done, that extra time in clean air had netted him the race lead, with Hadley Simpson 2nd, but only because he had spent too little time in the pit lane, something for which he was later penalised. Emma Tomlinson and Ali Jafali were doing battle for podium places in Am, but it was a Donington double for Archie Clark, who starts his season off in style.